Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of The Accomplishment Project. Today's episode is a little different. It's our first ever panel conversation, and it's centered around a topic I know so many of us struggle with, and that's how to set goals in a way that actually supports our lives instead of overwhelming them. I'm calling this episode A Better Way to Set Goals, No Hustle Required, because what you're about to hear is not about grinding harder, fixing yourself, or forcing outcomes. This conversation brings together 5 members of the Accountability Success Circle, the community that has quietly been the incubator for the Accomplishment Project. Every person on this panel has participated in Goal 30 challenges, annual planning retreats, or long-term accountability work inside the community, and each person brings a very different perspective on goals, habits, and accountability. What I love about this conversation is how honest and human it is. We talk about why big goals often fall apart, how accountability can be supportive instead of harsh, the role of mindset, seasons, and energy, and how small, sustainable habits often matter more than grand plans. You'll hear insights from leaders, creatives, parents, and professionals who are all navigating real life while still wanting to grow. My hope is that this episode helps you breathe a little easier about your goals and maybe rethink what success can look like when it's rooted in alignment instead of pressure. Let's get started. So we are going to kick off this awesome first ever panel episode. I just want to go around the room and get everybody to introduce themselves. These are wonderful friends of mine, members of the Accountability Success Circle. So I'm going to have all of them share their name, how long they've been part of the ASC, and one word that describes their relationship with goals right now. So Terry, can you kick it off?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Terry Brown. I've been part of the ASC for about 5 years now, and I guess a word to describe my relationship goals would be sustainable.
Hi, I'm Gary. You might recognize me from episode 2 of the podcast. From San Diego, California. Love being in this community, and I've been here since the beginning, I guess you can say. I don't know how long that is. But for me, one word that describes my relationship with goals is it's complicated.
Hi, I'm Alex. I am from northern Indiana, little small town called Warsaw, and I've been part of this group for less than a year, and it's been pretty awesome and exciting. My word for my relationship with goals currently is exciting.
Hi, I'm Annie. I have been part of the ASC for about a year and a half. Oh, I'm also joining from Olympia, Washington. And one word to describe my relationship with goals, Gary already took mine. So I'm going to say balance.
Hello, my name is Mike. I currently live in Beaverton, Oregon, just outside of Portland. And I've been part of the ASC, I think, for 8 years. And the one word that I thought of was transitional. Not that my goals are transitional, but they have triggered a lot of transition recently in my life that is very exciting.
Thank you, guys. All right. One of the things that we're going to do in this conversation today is talk about goal setting, accountability. What structures can we put in place to not just have a New Year's resolution, but something that's actually going to stick and be something that you can share as a win by the end of the year. So my first question for the group is, when you guys think about setting goals, what is the most important thing people tend to overlook?
So I think when I think of setting goals, I forget about the daily habits that matter the most, the baby steps that we have to take in setting that, because we tend to think of what are the big things that I can do? What is this large time commitment I can make? But instead, if I really focus in on something for 5 or 10 minutes and show consistency in that every day, that really does make a lot of the progress towards the goal at the end of the day.
I would agree with that. It's something that you can sustain. This happens a lot on first of the year, as everyone's like, I'm going to get super in shape. I'm going to be at the gym, which I do not like because then there's a line at the gym. And then a week later, there's no line at the gym. Everyone's given up because they went too hard, too quickly. You've got to like have those daily habits that you build on slowly over time and ramp up.
I think the other thing that gets overlooked is what might get in the way. We get super excited about the goal, and we don't take a moment to reflect on, what sort of challenges might show up. And I love to do that exercise because it helps you overcome those. Because if you know these are the potential, then you can sort of plan for that.
I think people overlook why the goal matters to them in the first place. I think sometimes you pick a goal because it sounds really nice in your head. So I think it's important to assess, one, when you pick the goal, but two, as you're going through it, like, does this resonate with me as something I really want to do, or is it just nice to say that I accomplish? I think it makes a difference.
I think one of the things people often overlook is the mindset part, that when we're doing a goal, I mean, a lot of times it's something we've never done before, right? So you can't have the same mindset that you've failed with on the same thing before. So I think there's an element of having to, okay, who do I have to be? What do I have to do differently? And that's going to stretch me. It's going to be uncomfortable. I have to step out of that comfort zone. I think that's a part we often overlook.
I think the only other thing that I would add is that I don't think people are looking at the entire picture when they're setting their goals. They spend a lot of time thinking about, the most impactful thing, but not necessarily realizing how it impacts everything else that they're doing in their life. So if it's a career goal that they're really focused on, how does that impact family? How does that impact health and wellness? If it is a health and wellness goal, how does that impact, your productivity and your time that you have to give to everything else? You almost need to think about the entire picture in order to set a goal that is actually going to be achievable. So that kind of leads me to my next question. What is one thing that you wish people would do less of when it comes to goals?
I think people do too much at the same time, and you burn out way too quickly because you're making too many changes at once and you're not ready for it.
I feel like when people go too hard too quickly and then just give up on themselves, I think that's so difficult, giving up on a goal and just deciding it's not worth it because of that learning curve and that effort that went into it, and not recognizing it's gonna be sticky, it's gonna be tricky, it's gonna be hard, it's not gonna feel familiar. And then on the other end, the recognition of when you need to let a goal go. So finding that sweet spot in between and not defaulting to one of the extremes, because I feel like that's where we tend to go, is either in the quit mindset or in the I should be giving it up, but I haven't done it yet.
It just makes me think far too often folks are in this all or nothing mindset. They start January and it's just like, yeah. And they're doing all of this overpromising. I think people need to do less of that overpromising to themselves, and trying to fix everything all at once, because it usually causes this panic and distress.
Also, what I wish people would do less of is expect the exact same output every day, all the time. That we do have different rhythms, different times of the year, or different things happening in life are going to change the amount of bandwidth I have. And I think people just expect the exact same level of output from themselves at all times. And so I wish we would do less of that.
I think sometimes people get really hung up in the system that they use, not in terms of like letting a goal go, but sometimes we'll look at, let's say, the top athletes, and let's say we have a fitness goal. It's like, I'm going to like work out like LeBron James does, even though I haven't worked out in months. That's a system that works great for him. You need to find a system that works great for you. And being willing to let your system like adapt over time. I think like I'm guilty of that. It's more important to find something that's like we talked for sustainable, than trying to force yourself to make someone else's system work for you. Because sometimes it is the right goal, but you're using the wrong path or tools to get that goal for you.
And that definitely causes undue and unnecessary stress that no one needs. And so then you're compiling additional stress that's putting other pressures on you. And then are you succumbing to not being able to follow through, even though the goal's the right goal, but like you said, the path is the wrong path?
I think that people put so much weight on January 1st. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And you start the year, and then January 15th hits, and then you're like, I'll just wait till next January 1st. And so remembering that you can start your new year at any time. If you feel like you were chasing a goal and then it didn't pan out the way that you wanted, then all of a sudden you want to give up, that's fine. Go have your pity party for a few days, couple weeks or whatever, but give yourself that opportunity to reflect on, was that not the right goal to chase? Do we need to make a new goal? But you can do that at any point of the year. I also want to talk a little bit about what happens once we make the goals and how we hold ourselves accountable to actually taking action. We are the Accountability Success Circle, so accountability is a big word that we always say every time we mention the community. But I think that sometimes people have different reactions to the word accountability and what it actually means. I think sometimes people think like, oh, I don't want to share my goal with you now because now I have to be held accountable, and as if accountability is a scary thing. And so I'm just curious, maybe we're all biased because we support each other, but when you hear the word accountability, what does it actually mean to you? Because I would want our listeners to think about accountability in a different way, in a more positive, inspiring, uplifting way.
All right, I'm hopping in first on this one. To me, accountability means support. That means like I have people or structures or systems or whatever it is in place to help me move forward. And accountability means, for me at least, is that above all, I'm accountable to myself. That like, is this really the thing that I want to do? Is this really the goal I want to move forward? And regularly checking in. I love having all of you cheering. We cheer each other on and do all of that. But above all, it's being accountable to myself, that I can look in the mirror and feel good about what I'm doing and how I'm moving forward.
Yeah, that looking in the mirror at the end of the day and knowing if you were true to yourself, true to what you wanted to achieve this day is huge. Not just for goals, for all aspects of life, but it's really helpful for goals as well. Because I have a history of procrastination and putting things off, and looking in the mirror at night, it's a good way of, am I continuing that bad pattern of putting things off, or am I taking action and sticking with the things that I promised myself, I committed to doing for myself? The external accountability definitely helps, but the internal stuff is really where the magic is.
I would say a big part of accountability for me is about just like having self-awareness. It's that sense of, if you are going for a goal and you didn't do what you needed to do, sometimes obstacles to get away outside of your hands, you can acknowledge that. And sometimes like everyone has a lazy day and need to recharge. But I think the minute that like you have that awareness that like, this is what I'm trying to do, it gives you that space to be like, did I do this? Yes, and how I can move forward. If I did it, I think what our community does well is like, it's not judgmental. It's just like to have that understanding, so you continue to grow and be a better person as you continue to move forward to your goals.
I like the accountability is both what you do and do not do, because sometimes it's what you need to back off of doing as well in order to make space for it. So if you have a goal that you want to spend a certain amount of time doing something, then sometimes there's that like anti-goal of backing off of social media or backing off of TV or backing off of another way that you're mindlessly spending time in an unconscious way that just takes away the time that we would have had dedicated to doing something. So I think accountability is in the space of what we do and do not do. For me, always better in community. I always do better when I know that there are other people cheering me on and holding me to it too, checking in and saying, how's that going? And then it's like, all right, yeah, I'm accountable to myself, which is really magical and powerful. But when you have that space of people who are doing it because they care, even better.
Yeah, so true. All these answers were so beautiful. And I feel like accountability has this sort of bad rap where people think it's all about policing. But based on what we all said, it's more about staying in relationship to our goals. And it works better when you have support, not someone surveilling you. And if you can be in community like ours, you can, like, the accountability comes from people noticing patterns that you probably don't see. A mentor of mine always likes to say, it's easier to see the picture when you're out of the frame, not in the frame. So I feel like our community is great from that.
When it comes to this idea of, accountability, I think just like every other word, it can mean something different to everyone. And there are some people who might want the drill sergeant-y kind of accountability where it's like, oh, get my ass out of bed and make me do the thing. And sometimes, people want the tough love. People might want to just, have a very gentle accountability. So this is a little bit more personal, but I'm curious for you guys, what kind of accountability doesn't work for you? And I'd be really curious to know if this resonates with other people listening, just to know that there's a difference between accountability that can work for you and that may not work for you.
I think I have a little anarchist or rebel inside of me. And so when Gary talked about policing for accountability, if I get policed, I start to rebel and I'm like, yeah, I'll show you. Like, you think I'm going to do this thing? I'm going to intentionally not do it just to prove you wrong. So that doesn't work well for me. When you have accountability that is coupled with someone who genuinely understands and cares about you, that works really well. But the policing, the drill sergeant stuff, absolutely does not work for me. It has the opposite effect.
I'm with Mike. Like, nope, no. When it feels like that judgmental sort of thing, like, I'm out. Yes, I will immediately do the opposite just because. Absolutely not. Yeah. That's what does not work. And that includes myself. When I start doing that to myself, like, it is a very delicate balance because, we get focused on a goal and that drill sergeant can show up in my head and then I'm rebelling against myself. And then that is just a whole mess. So, that's a very fine line.
I feel like for me, it's more complex than that. I can respond to the drill sergeant thing if I already know the pre-existing relationship and I'm very comfortable with the task that I'm doing. So if I already feel like I have mastery and it's just more of an adherence, I can take a little bit more firm and a little bit more drill sergeant, if you will. Including with myself, I think of like hard workouts. Like if I know I can push, then I can do it. However, when it comes to a task that I'm gaining familiarity with or I'm trying to learn, taking that approach will shut me down really quickly and it doesn't provide me that same level of motivation. So I guess it's task comfortability, relationship with the person, and it's variable.
I feel like when I get the impression I have to prove something to like someone or a group and it's a bottomless pit, or like you do something, it's just not enough and they ask for more things, it's not enough, it's more things, not enough. That's the quickest way for me to shut down. Like growing up, that was like hard to deal with because like you respect authority figures. But as an adult, I'm just like, I don't even take it seriously. Like, I just don't want to do the thing you're asking me anymore. Like it doesn't motivate me. It's just like, one, what's the point of me constantly going if it's never enough? And two, I don't even think the person group that's like pushing that even knows what they want. So why would I like honor that if they don't even know what they're honoring? So that's like quiz me for me. Like I'm not going to be accountable to this because it doesn't feel like it really means anything.
For me, things that are too rigid don't work. I'm with Mike and Annie in that and this again goes to myself, when you get that drill sergeant thing, I tend to do the opposite. But also, a lot of times when it comes to accountability, the old way of thinking is like, oh, all about output, output, output. And Annie really articulates this beautifully in that our energy and capacity changes. So if it's just about the output and not taking into account like how are we showing up in a given day, like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I need flexibility.
I've been thinking about this recently, and I don't know why I've been afraid to talk about it, but I know for me, I really struggle with comparison. And if there is a numerical marker attached to compare to, it automatically puts me in a position to place myself in a less than position if I don't think that I can meet those numerical targets, which is interesting because, if I can do something well and these numerical targets are good, then great. But anytime, think about it from the perspective of like, let's say I was in a class with somebody and they were like, hey, I got an A on the test and I got a B. I immediately don't want to share what I got. And I also then feel like, well, if I can't get an A, then why would I even try? Recently, an old story surfaced up where I used to want to be a journalist, and I took news writing as a freshman. And it wasn't until a few months ago when I was talking to my son about my report card, realizing that I made some switch from journalism to engineering very quickly, and I couldn't remember. But I looked at my report card and I got a B in news writing. And I immediately took that as I am not meant to be a journalist. And so when there's accountability where I have to meet a certain marker and I don't meet it, it really hurts the value of my goal. And I start to wonder, I'm not good enough. And I think that it's a perfectionist trait for sure. And it's hard for me because we quantify so many things in life and it's almost necessary, and I'm not quite sure how to navigate it, but I work better when I'm chasing the feeling, I think is what I'm trying to say. It's more of, do I feel good about the work that I'm doing? Yes, maybe there are certain metrics that I need to meet, but sometimes when I set metrics, I set them, and then when I meet them, I want to exceed them. And then it's just at some point, when is it enough? And so for me, that accountability of trying to chase numbers is not as good for me.
You made me think of something for myself. What doesn't work for me is when I feel like I have to prove myself. That usually I get in my own way and I'm not in that state of flow. I talk about this a lot, about seeing the world as a proving ground versus a playground. And so when I'm in that proving ground mindset, that's where burnout comes. And matter of fact, one of my daily affirmations to myself is the only person I would strive to be better than is the person I was yesterday. Because when there's that sort of comparison of like, oh, this person does this and whatnot, I get into this robot mode where I'm doing things, but I'm not necessarily consciously attached to what I want to do. So thank you for sharing that. And I can relate.
Yeah, I feel a relation to both of you talking about that too. And for me, what comes up is, am I intrinsically motivated within myself to push myself to be a better version of myself? Or am I looking for external validation to tell me I'm doing a good job? I think so many times in my own life, I have a perception of an external motivator that isn't even real, but I place it there. And then I use that to push myself. But no one else is asking that of me. It's me asking that of myself in an unfair way as a measuring stick against someone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've struggled with that many times in life because I do happen to be rebellious. So, tell me I have to do a thing. No, thank you. But one of the things with the comparison that I've had to really start thinking about is, well, but says who? Like, who made up these marks in the first place? Like an A versus a B, like, says who? Like some system that somebody made up somewhere. And is this the thing I even want to buy into in the first place? But we all received that programming growing up, right? Like, you have to get A's, you have to do this. And so I very much relate and have had to do a lot of work to like pull the apart over the years. So you are not alone.
And I think what's important for this next generation is to look at, how do we get them motivated intrinsically? How do we get them to be motivated by being proud of the effort that they put in and the trying and the lessons learned versus I hit the markers, I did what I was supposed to do? That it's output based, not input based. Can we get excited about the input? Like, that's what matters the most.
I think also the biggest problem when it's like a marker or external motivator is it doesn't even tell the whole story. If you ever think of like 5 movies that you would give 5 stars to, I guarantee you they're not the exact same plot with the exact same actors and the exact same storyline. They're all different. So just because something is like 5 stars or 100% or an A plus, how someone got there and what makes it special is different from person to person, art piece to art piece. And the more that you can focus on like what makes something special, it's usually not the marker we gave it. The marker is just a way like kind of quantify it, but it's not giving the full experience what makes something stand out.
Yeah, and I think that especially in more creative fields too, it is all about invoking a feeling more than some of the actual markers. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about accountability, are there any particular practices, structures, or habits that genuinely help you guys stay connected to your goals over time?
All right. I am a nerd and I legitimately manage my life in project management software because there are so many things happening all the time that there is a 0% chance my brain will keep track of all of them. So I need a place where I can just like dump all the things. Okay, now they're not lost. And it helps me to like break it down into the smallest steps. And then I do have a weekly reflection practice, and for sure the seasonal one is the big one for me. At the end of each season, having that to have like a real full review of what we actually made progress on, what's left to do. And the big one for me is this still a thing I want to do? Is this still aligned now that I've made some progress? Does this still feel like a thing I want to focus on?
I too am a nerd, and I track my stuff in spreadsheets. So, and for me, it's the habit part of it. And so when you've got the habits, that's what keeps you going every day, because you're using those habits to build on your goals. And then either a weekly check-in or a monthly check-in where you're connecting with someone else. It's regular, it's scheduled, and you're reviewing those goals and making sure that you are on track. And you've got someone like April who can be like, hey, you said you were going to work on this. You haven't given any updates on it for a while. What is one step that you're going to do this coming week to get you closer to that goal?
My go-to is using my bullet journal. So every month I like to map out as many things as I can and like set it up so that like all my like habits, goals, and hobbies are all integrated into one calendar that I can just have that satisfactory to-do list. I highlight, I check things off. So part of it is that. Part of it is also accepting, even though I write all this stuff down, a lot of it is trial and error. Even things that I've like done for months. Sometimes life changes and like the schedule that I thought I would have in mind has to change, or the way I thought a goal would be realized has to be adjusted. So like just accepting that, even though I wrote it down, I don't like hold myself, like I give myself that grace. And the third thing, mindset makes a difference. What makes Goal 30s work for me is just the realization of like, I told everyone I was going to do this one thing for 30 days. So that headspace helps me overcome excuses that aren't really obstacles. Like if I say I'm going to write today, I have to write today, versus if I don't have the headspace, any small excuse, I'm doom scrolling, a show's on, that will interrupt me doing this habit. But the minute I locked in and said I said I was going to do it, it opens my mind up being like, well, how can I fit this into my day? And that builds up the momentum over time where I don't have to do as much anymore. But the headspace, the bullet journal, and just accepting trial and error works best for me for my goals.
And I just really quickly want to interject and clarify for everyone what Goal 30 is. Terry, do you want to explain to everybody what Goal 30 is?
So how we define Goal 30, it's a community challenge where everyone picks something that really matters to them for 30 days they're going to commit to. And the whole goal is each day to one, make sure that you do something in line with what that goal is. But two, to check in for everyone else. One, to provide support. When people know what your goal is, they're more easier like give you like that cheer and like that energy that you need to keep going, or even give advice if you're kind of stuck somewhere. But two, it's just a great way to like stay connected and like monitor progress. And three, it helps you really assess like if the goal matters. I've had Goal 30s where like everything clicked and I'm just like sharing my wins. I have Goal 30s where like this is not really something I really want to do right now. So if you're looking for a goal that you're trying to like finally accomplish, and the thing that's like missing is that community support and that sustained accountability in like a positive way, that's what Goal 30 is for. It's perfect for that.
Thank you.
I generally like to be very flexible and approach my day with not a lot of structure. That said, I know that if I want to get something done, time of day for me is absolutely critical. So if I can build myself into a pattern, a routine, the things that I want to achieve and accomplish, even if it's like during a Goal 30 and it's for that month, what am I carving in? Where's that time and where does it live? Because if I can follow my typical pattern, I can sway with what comes during that time. So if it gets adapted, adjusted a little bit, we can sway, we can move with it, but I have to have it there in place in order to know that I'm going to get to it. Certain things, if I don't do it in the morning, it's literally not happening until the next day. It's just how things flow and work. And I think the other piece of it, even though we talk that extrinsic motivation and numbers and everything, but I do think that sometimes there's a way that we can capture on goals by measuring them in ways that we didn't expect. So, I've been on this journey to try to tackle my healthcare and wellness, and part of that has been in a very physical way. I have been trying to lose weight. My PCOS is acting so strongly against me. But what I started doing was tracking instead how many reps I was doing of activities the weights I was using. And when I can take a moment to pause and look back and say, okay, 3 months ago, this is where I'm at, and today I'm here. If I was tracking weight only, it would have looked like a failure. And would I give up by now? If I was tracking food only, like, so what is it that I'm tracking, and how do I see success in different ways? So I think part of it is when we go in and set a goal, track some things that you're not certain will even matter, because sometimes that's where you see the growth.
The thing that I've been doing for years that I find the most helpful, and it seems so trivial, but it's so impactful, it is adjusting the activation energy. So this comes from researcher BJ Fogg, and he says, if you want to get yourself to do something that is a bit challenging for you, how can you reduce your brain's chatter? So, for example, something when I used to go to the gym at like 5 a.m, I would go to sleep in my gym clothes, or I would have it so that I don't have to think about anything. And so when the alarm went off, boom, I got up, I put on my sneakers, which were right at the edge of my bed. My gym bag was right there. Boom, I'm out the door super quick. And if you want to keep yourself from doing something, you increase the activation energy. So like when I was working on less sweets, I made it so that those tempting sweets were in a place where it was just more like exhausting and challenging to get to. And then I sort of talked myself out of doing it. So that is something that works so easy. And especially because we talked about a lot of times these goals that we set are big goals, and it's going to challenge us to become this better version of ourselves. So we're not used to doing it yet. We don't have the programs in place. So we have to make it easier on ourselves. So that's the first thing. And then the other one is a bit of make believe, and it's a lot of fun. I think about, who is this future version of myself? Like, who is Gary in a year from now when Gary has this thing? What are the habits and mindsets that future Gary has? And that sort of identity helps you do the things that you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for sharing. And for me, I think the one practice that has just built over time, and many of you guys have experienced it, but for me, it's really having a space to plan out a year and set some longer range goals. And so I typically start that process in August and start thinking about what I want to accomplish in the coming year. It goes all the way until December 31st, but to just give myself that space to think, because I spend, outside of a few days a year, I am just go, 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 go. And I think a lot of times people can't make change in their goals because they don't take that time to reflect on where they're at and how far they've come, and are they on the right track. And so that's the one of many practices and structures that I have in place that is non-negotiable. I need to have time and space to myself. So whether it happens for you in August, in October, in January, in March, over the summer, you get to choose that. Or if you want to have multiple touch points to revisit your goals, like Annie does it every season, the space is so valuable. And it's something that I think we forget that we need. And so don't just be in the crazy hustle all the time. You need to take some time to retreat and think back about, okay, what did I do? How does it feel? Do I want to move forward? Do I need to go a different way? And if you don't give yourself that reflection opportunity, then you're going to just keep on your hamster wheel, which is what we're trying to avoid. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of your great tools. And I wanted to shift a little bit, since we are a community, and seeing the difference of what it's like to do your goals in community versus doing them alone. I'm just really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on how being a part of a consistent community has influenced the way that you think about or follow through on your goals.
There is that cool African proverb that talks about, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And like, goals are, you can do them by yourself. When you're doing them with a group, even if everyone's working on different goals, there's an energy that builds up where not only are you working your goal, you're seeing other people working their goals, you're celebrating their successes, they're celebrating your success, and you build this momentum together. And so the community really helps you keep going. When you have bad days, they're there to build you back up. When they have bad days, you're there to help build them back up. And it's a community. We're all there to support each other. And it just makes it a whole lot easier working on your goals together.
I totally agree. I tend to just be a lone wolf. I blame the fact that I'm an only child. I just tend to forget that, like, oh wait, there are other like people around that I can lean on, and like peers. I'm not used to that being part of my mindset. So yeah, I just tend to like head down, do my thing. But being part of this community has been exactly what Mike said. It's like you can feel that momentum building, even though we're all working on totally different things. It is that motivation to know that, like, and I'll set the reminder in my phone. Okay, I got to check in for goal 30 later today. And so, like, knowing that I'm going to show up and I'm going to say a thing about what I did, and also knowing that everybody else is there too, and they're showing up whether they had a good day, a bad day, or whatever. And I actually always appreciate when people show up, even if they didn't do the thing, because it helps us all give ourselves grace, but also build each other back up. So it has really been honestly surprising for me, because I'm just used to working in solitude, even though, it only takes a few minutes to do the reflections, but just to have that in my mind, knowing that there's this other group of humans, and we're spread out around the country. I mean, sometimes around the globe, right? That are also in it with me, is just super helpful.
To piggyback off of Mike and Annie, I think what's beautiful about it all, it's like interdependence being lived out. So there are very few spaces where I think, as Americans primarily, you can find this sense of, I can do my thing, I can feel empowered in my thing, and there are times where I need to lean on someone. We're very quick oftentimes to help others and want to step in to help, but seldom there to ask for help. And there's something about this community that just makes it really safe to be like, I didn't do the thing, or what I'm doing isn't working. And all the people who flood in to provide support and to encourage and to not judge and not reinforce that whole idea of, oh, you're falling short and you better catch yourself back up. But like, sometimes it's a, hey, do you need to reevaluate? So I just love that it's interdependence. It's the idea that we can be independent, but also we can lean on each other. And some of the things you would never expect people to even, I guess, know about, people come in showing up in all the ways, able to comment and tell you about things you would have never known had it not been for the community. So it's pretty cool.
I find that like one of the best things about the community is that, especially as it pertains to our goals, uh, you never know like how others view your goal, and the magic of like being a part of this group is that sometimes when you think like you're making progress, it doesn't feel like you're making progress, but like you see people respond back and like they see how far you come from day one, day 10, like sometimes better than you do. That, and sometimes like your goal can be completely unrelated to someone else's, but then they get inspired by your goal to do something in the future. So it's just the idea like you literally don't know the impact of you like putting your goal out there in a way that's like beneficial to not just yourself but everyone else. And I love our community's support and our way to like kind of like boost and learn from each other. It's just really impactful and special.
Terry, you had done a goal 30 all about doing like a daily art piece every single day. And I just really was so inspired by that and loved it so much. This past week, I was like, gosh darn it, Alex, you've just got to create more stuff and just do things with it. So I did. I made this very, very silly poster. Long story short, there's somebody, their last name is Hill. They have a dog named Sam. And then, of course, I thought of Elf and What in the Sam Hill. And so I made this ridiculous little dog with this What in the Sam Hill thing and gave it to them. And it made their whole day. So, Terry, if it weren't for you getting bold, I don't know that I would have done that. So thank you.
And I think that that is something that is super cool about being able to do goals alongside other people, because even if they're working on something completely different and not on your radar, it might inspire something about the way that you do your work in a different way. Or you might just want to steal the goal for yourself, and you get to learn by watching how they progress through the goal. And then you've got that information for yourself. This is exactly why I love the Accomplishment Project, because I think there's so much power in our stories and what we have experienced that it's kind of cuts corners for us sometimes and allows us to see we could do the same exact thing and have two different outcomes, but also you get a perspective and you can't necessarily get that perspective unless you live it yourself, and we only have so much capacity.
If you're familiar with how birds fly, especially, flying south for the winter or whatever the case may be, they fly in formation. And there's reason for that is that it reduces the load. You see the same thing when you see road bikers in what is called a peloton. The person in the front sort of leading the pack, but they take turns being in the front, and then we all sort of succeed together. And I feel like that's what this community is about, is that, yes, we're on our own journeys, but the fact that we're in community, it makes the load less heavy because we're all working together. And I'm a big fan of the Mighty Ducks. So anytime I can reference the Flying V or Ducks Fly Together, I'm just going to just slide it in there. So I've been waiting the whole time to say that. So there we go.
I love it. Oh my gosh, this has been such an amazing conversation. And as we start to wrap up, if somebody's listening this heading into the new year or whatever day, feeling overwhelmed, what's one small mindset shift you'd like to offer to that person right now?
One small is the thing that comes to mind is you don't have to change everything at once. What is the one small thing that you could do every day that is going to make you just that 1% more productive or 1% more mindful than you are currently right now? And just focus on that for 30 days. And that's going to have this incremental, exponential impact on your life. And then pick one more small thing. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be sexy. Just something small that you can do every single day.
Similarly, the most foundational steps when you think of learning to walk are those baby steps that you first took and you fell and you stood back up and you walked again. Same thing with whatever you're trying to accomplish right now. The foundational steps are the ones where you keep at it and keep going, even if they're itty bitty, teeny tiny, and really messy and wobbly. Those matter most.
I would say, what would you tell your best friend? If you are in this moment of feeling super overwhelmed and like you're not making any progress, what would you tell your best friend? Try that first and see if you can be a little kinder to yourself. And I find when I do that, it's a whole different story than the one that's happening in my head.
I would say take that first step, but also honor that first step. I think it's very easy to pick like the smallest thing you do is like, yeah, but that's not really doing things. Like, no, if you haven't like worked out like months and your goal is just do one push-up, that's one more push-up than you did the day before. And that does count. Sometimes that one push-up is the catalyst to like drive you forward. So yeah, I did that one push-up. And that will give you the internal motivation as well as like one push-up got too easy, I could do two. And then two becomes four. So like let yourself honor what you do, even if it's like the smallest possible thing you can do. It makes a difference.
Yeah. And that one thing that you should be asking yourself, or at least that's what I tell myself every day, am I treating this as a proving ground or a playground? What state am I in? And if you feel like you're in this sort of state of proving ground, things are hard. You are trying to prove to yourself or trying to prove to others that you're worthy, and it's like a test, and the stakes are too high, and you're most likely going to give up. How can you shift it to seeing the world as a playground? Because when you see the world as a playground, it's more experiential. And when you fall down, you get back up and you get into that intrinsic motivation that we've been talking about. So my ask of you is, when you look at your goal, what is one thing that you can do to make it feel more like play?
I love all of these words of wisdom. Words of wisdom, people. Listen carefully. So whether it is your new year or you're listening to this on a random day, let your new year be today and take everything that we've talked about. You can do it. You can accomplish all your goals. Figure out the right ways to hold yourself accountable, create strong structures, and do the thing. Thank you guys so much, my ASC peeps. And for any of you who are curious or want to hang out with any of these amazing humans alongside me, check out www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. And we out.